You might have heard that this guy is the god of DC Comics. Or maybe it's this lovely and charming gal.
Brother, ugh.
In both cases, you'd be wrong. So today, I'd love to have a discussion on the religious views of DC Comics and what the differences are behind a small group of cosmic powerhouses. If you like this sort of content, please make sure to pre-adapt to the like button and tap it before time can even allow it. And make sure to share this content wherever you can, and perhaps even drop a comment or two below. You know, I'm not monetized and won't be asking for your money, so the least you can do for me is just make sure you hit the like button, right? So let's begin where most comic enthusiasts usually start. The Lucifer 2000 series, written by M.R. Carey, a wonderful story about Satan, the devil, Lucifer Morningstar, and his never-ending plight to get out of his father's creation at any cost. But who is his father? Good old Yahweh of the Judaistic and Christian faith, of course. Fashioner of the heavens, the Alpha and Omega, of course you've heard of him. The Creator, or is he? Let's dive right in and get past all the clutter of this amazing 75-issue run, which I highly suggest you pick up sometime because it's worth every penny and a great read. But for now, let's keep things fast and simple. Yahweh, also known as the Presence, is not the original creator of the DCU space or the Vertigo space. That is because the DC structure is not based on the biblical account. It's actually more in line with the Cabalistic account, with a hint of Vedic transcendental meditation practices that were made famous by the yogi named the Maharishi. In this series, Lucifer was given a special pass to cut his way into what is called the Void. For many years, comics fans thought this void was the Overvoid from a future series that was released 8 years later called Final Crisis. But this void is not the Overvoid. More on that void later. For now, we will call this other void the Lucifer White Void. And its name in Hinduism is called the Garbo Daka, the Casual Ocean, the Sea of Eternity, and also the Mahapralaya. Yeah, that's a lot of names for one place. Lucifer enters this void, and at the end of the series he meets his father Yahweh out there, who offers him a chance for the two to merge and become one new sentient being, or that Lucifer can leave and fly deeper into this void away from his father. Lucifer, of course, throws that offer on the ground.
And I'm not gonna let you poison me. I threw it on the ground.
Opting to instead get as far away from his dad as possible. Lucifer notes that there are many creations in this void, rising and falling, and that this void is essentially just a container for stuff that allows concepts to flow freely so that creations can be made and come to exist or die. In the Hindu religion's view, specifically the Vedic one, this Mahapralaya void runs on a death cycle known as the Yuga cycle. Yuga just so happens to also be the name of Darkseid's dad, but that's a topic for another day. So for now, the Yuga cycle lasts 311.04 trillion years before all creations within this void sink and will ultimately be reborn sometime later. This void has nothing to do with the biblical Yahweh character named the Presence, who is clearly just one creator with some creations in this endless expanse. We clearly and briefly get a reference to this notion in a more recent guidebook that implies that this Presence may not be the only creator within this infinite void space. Lucifer's intent is to escape his father's plan and to get as far away from him as possible, so we can infer and logically deduce that Lucifer knows his dad does not own this void space, and that moving as far away from this area is the best way to get as far from his father as possible. So too, in the second Lucifer series, the comic makes mention of this Garbo Daka void being a place that his father Yahweh cannot reach, and if one wants to escape the eyes and ears of the Presence, you would enter this abyss known as the Garbo Daka void. More corroboration that the Presence is not all-seeing, is not all-knowing, and has limited parameters to its own powers. We can then fast forward a bit more to the third Lucifer series that was released in 2018, and in this case, I ended up debunking myself accidentally. I'd said in many of my past videos that the third Lucifer series denotes that the Presence and Lucifer were wiped by the Overvoid, when the comic informs us that Lucifer's intent was to send his own concept into the bliss of total non-being, a void that him and his angel brothers were not born from or inside of. I wrongly said this was the Overvoid until I talked to Dan Waters on Twitter and was told that this ultimate void was a reference to Genesis 1:2. the void in which creation gets imparted and made into by Yahweh, when the world was formless and void in the First Testament of the Bible. And also, maybe you haven't seen this scan before, but this is an interview from the editorial of the comic from Mike Carey that says, obviously, Lucifer is the second most powerful being in the whole of creation, but the foe that he is facing here, the Silk Man, isn't from around these parts. He's a relic from a much earlier creation and was never sculpted by the hand of God. This makes him uniquely unpredictable and uniquely dangerous. So even the author agrees that other things are made out there in that expansive void, and they are not made by Yahweh. In the Kabbalah, the Jewish mystic religious view of this, they have a similar void called the Zimzum, an area that God, the Creator, voided and hollowed out specifically to impart creation into. This third series Lucifer void that wiped the presence and Lucifer both was still not on par with the context and totem location of what the Overvoid was shown to be in another future series. But again, more on this Overvoid in just a bit. Let's skip to the De Mateus series, in which the Spectre merges with the Oversoul and the Void beyond voids. Many fans once more assumed that this reference to voids equals the Overvoid, the Monitor Mind, which is objectively false and just intended to be false equivalency, and the lack of an education on religious scriptures that these locations are always sampled from. Even this scan mentions the Sea of Eternity. This is the White Void of the Spectre series, which is another name for the void that Lucifer flew in previously, another name for Prelea, or the Garbo Daka. Moving forward, there are mentions all over other comics that the original creator came from void first, and then its consciousness manifested later, as Sinar, the original designer of the presence, had stated here in these scans. And so too, reaffirmed here that the God creator comes from void first and then manifests itself later. Still more onward to other De Mateus territory, the divine smile for ages was thought to be the presence because it was labeled and titled the Divine Presence. Many fans wrongly assumed that it was a reference to Lucifer's father, whose name is the Presence. A little bit confusing. Until 2024, where I inquired to the author online, and which more people extended that conversation to dig a little deeper with, revealing that the author regards the character of the Divine Smile, the Divine Presence, as a totally different character than Lucifer's father, who is also named the Presence. The Divine Presence is a title. Lucifer's dad, the Presence, is a character name, and fans mix this up for ages. The Divine Presence was then defined extremely similarly to the source of the DCU, being the origin of all religious ideas akin to how the God Wave begat all the religious pantheons of the DCU, stemming from an entity known as the Source. So if you ask me, the Divine Presence and the Source are the same character. Only one more step to go, and we must reference the dreaded comic above all other comics.
Oh, Jesus, God, no.
The one I fear speaking of these days. I'm kidding, I talk about it literally every day and every single post I make. Final Crisis, Superman Beyond, issues 1 and 2, released in 2008. Here, we get a reference to a timeless, eternal void that says it was first before anything else, and then it starts to notice things. The stain it notices is existence. This is a reference to the Cabalistic structure of the Ein, which is the void of which the truest form of God stems from. The void is total non-being, following a logical progression, and in the idea that 0 always predates 1. This void can be sentient when it wants, according to Maharishi's explanations in these video interviews that I can link to. But why talk about Maharishi in a Jewish mystic parallel? Well, because the Kabbalah's Ein void and the Vedic Hinduism absolute void are identically the same idea with the same parameters and the same definitions, the very same idea of nothingness spawning everything else. It's not even that uncommon for older religious views to have this viewpoint. Even the ancient Greeks and Egyptians believed that the void of chaos and non-being is what spawned in the rest of the first gods and concepts. This is a repeating voidist motif in many religious worldviews. Existence in this religious view is emergent, which is what Captain Allen explains in the Superman Beyond issue 1. There needs not be a creator. It simply winks in. The logic behind this is that existence must exist to define total non-being. Therefore, the void allows existence to emerge. Existence itself is called the Ein Sof. It's a conceptual infinity point of all concepts, ideas, energies, possibilities, and anything at all combined. It is all things that can, are, is, or ever will be, the very tools of God. In this state, the idea of God is unmoving and unchanging. It cannot use energies nor any ideas to ignite creations. It is simply a prime Platonic form. Within this infinite soup bowl is the idea for the consciousness of God, which labels itself the creator and logically knows that an extension is required to start creating. Out of this Ein Sof, the idea of God the creator fashions the Ein Sof Or, the collective amalgamation of God as a creator that becomes interactable and able to perform functions. The Ein Sof Or becomes the extension of God the creator, and in this sense for the DCU, this would be regarded as the source. In the Jewish mystic religious view, this is based on this ultimate God creator fashions the bodies of creation in the form of the tree of life, in which symbolic nodes and sephiroths that denote different aspects of God and creation are forged. At the top of this tree is the crown. This is where God the creator resides. This God creator entity is both the crown itself and also the face of the religious viewpoint, where the Ein Sof Or is not. We see this sort of pop up in the Gaiman Sandman series, where it's said that the presence is the Silver City itself, and the Silver City is the crown on this map, and that entering the Silver City means entering the presence. This follows the Cabalistic structure perfectly to the letter, that above the crown of the presence resides the Ein Sof Or the source. Above that is the Ein Sof, all possible and not possible anythings, stray Platonic forms and thoughts, including the very idea of God. And above all of this, the ultimate container, the actual zero factor that logically must predate infinity to give it definition, the actual ultimate void, the ultimate form of God, absolute non-being, where all conceptual and manifest anythings surrender and become meaningless. This is the monitor mind. For those not aware, the cosmic armor Superman is the Ein Sof, the collective pool of all things and all stories, all data, and all possibilities. The name Cosmic Armor Superman is an Easter egg for the cosmic Ein Sof, both C-A-S, and as cringe as it seems, the name Kaz is written on the flaw and stain of the Ein Sof in the comic. I noticed this one day while I was eating pizza and had the comic kind of sideways on my couch, and taking a bite of my food, I saw the outline of Kaz staring at me in the face. In essence, existence personified is the armor, the Ein Sof. It is inclusive of everything, intended to fight non-being or Mandrak, the absence of everything, who both Bleed Space and the omniscient Book of Limbo call the real God. So I hope you learned something today. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below and what other topics you might want me to cover in the future. So yeah, thanks so much for watching.